All right. Um, can I get your name, what branch you served in, and what time did you serve? Like time period?
Reginald Watkins. I was in the Army from 66 to 68.
All right. Um, uh, how was basic training in your own experience? Like, were there any stories that like stood out to you during that time, or anything, or like how was it?
It was good for me because I was a squad leader
Mm-hmm.
and I had my own little private room. Uh, so I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I was older than everybody because I was 25 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like everybody else was in their 18, 19
Mm-hmm.
year old.
Mm-hmm. Um, was there anything that stood out to you when you were in basic training, like anything that you did or something happened or like something that you liked, for example?
I had, when I first got to basic training, I met a black sergeant
Mm-hmm.
and I had my shoelaces, my boots laced up,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have them tucked in. And he said, tuck those static lines in. So he became one of my uh, favorite people.
Mm-hmm.
Our sergeant, he was, I can't remember his name, but he was kind of short and mean as a rattlesnake. But I enjoyed being a squad leader.
Mm-hmm. Um, well, what year were you deployed, and um, how was it when you first got deployed? Um, and like, what were some of the places that you like saw or been that were most prominent?
Yeah. Well, after basic training at Fort Bragg, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, took my AIT training, and I was a petroleum specialist uh, for, and my primary duty overseas was refueling helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and what we would do, we would set up like a 10,000 gallon collapsible tank when they had an assault. And the Pathfinders, they would go out. There's probably six of those, and they would go out and clear an LZ. And then we would we'd take our collapsible fuel bladder in,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we would refuel off of when they had an assault.
All right.
So we went in when the Pathfinders did.
Mm-hmm. Um, did you have when you were over there? Did you find like a core group of like friends that you mostly hanged out with most of the time while you were there?
Yeah, in my squad, there was five of us that were petroleum specialists, and uh, so my friend that I met the day that well, it was 2 days after I arrived in country, because I landed in Pleiku, and so then as a matter of fact, I had guard duty the first night I was in country,
Mm-hmm.
and then they put me on a truck and three quarter in the back of a three quarter, and I went to the train, and so that was where my company picked me up in the back of a 3/4 to take me to my company at Don Batin,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Don Batin was probably west of Cameron Bay, probably 20 miles from Cameron Bay. That was where the Air Force had a big Air Force base.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go to the Air Force base because they had all the goodies.
Mm-hmm.
They had good food, which we had food, uh, but they had super good hamburgers.
Uh-huh.
But the only thing they wouldn't let you, especially if we'd been out in the field, we had our rifles with us, and they wouldn't allow us in some places with our rifles.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought that was kind of tacky.
Yeah, I bet so. Um, how was like what did y'all do in like y'all's free time, like when y'all weren't like I guess when you had like leave or something?
Yeah, it if I wore my civvies a bunch, I would even when I was on duty, if it was at night, I'd have on a pair of shorts and just a shirt, and uh, so I didn't I didn't have anything. I was just trying to, so I would pull duty for some of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if I didn't go to town that much. I'd go occasionally
Mm-hmm.
with some of my buddies just to keep them out of trouble because I didn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
So I, uh, I I hope they looked up to me. So I tried to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like 5 of us. Me, the first man I met was Lazo. He was from Florida and New York. His dad lived uh, in Florida and his mom lived in New York. And then there was a Johnson from California and a Towsley. He was from I think he was from California also. And then there was a sergeant that was supposedly over the petroleum specialist, but I didn't spend much time with him.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed out in the field most of the time. We would I drove a 1,200-gallon jet fuel tanker, and most of the time when we were convoying, I'd pull a water trailer with potable water,
Mm-hmm.
and so and Lazo probably 100% of the time he always rode with me,
Mm-hmm.
and but I always 100% of the time did the driving. Because a couple of times we would go across some bridges that they were in question whether or not they would allow us to go.
Mm-hmm.
And Lazo, the friend that he was, he'd get out and walk.
Yeah.
I told him we were in Cameron Bay, so we knew we were going to be out in the field for 4 to 6 weeks. We would come back into base camp about every 4 or 6 weeks after an assault and regroup, and then we'd go back out. So
Mm-hmm.
we'd be back at base camp probably 2 or 3 days, and then we'd go back out. And so Lazo, I asked him to. I was getting the truck ready, make sure it was fueled up and everything was on go. And so told Lazo to go get us some drinks, some Cokes. And so he went and got Cokes. Somewhere or another, I acquired from one of my friends that was in a cook, I acquired a big block of cheese on a couple of occasions. But I remember we got started and I asked Lazo for a Coke, which I could drink hot Cokes. Uh, and he handed me a root beer. I said, no, I want a Coke. Because I knew he had got 2 cases. He said, I ain't got no Coke. All he got was 2 cases of root beer. So I got so I enjoyed drinking root beer that route. And I've never drunk beer, but a lot of times that would be the only thing that would be around. They made sure there was plenty of beer. Because when they had an assault, they had hamburgers, steaks, hot dogs. In other words, they had a big grill going for 2 or 3 days when they had an assault going, because you didn't know when you were going to be on the flight line or when you were going to be out. So I could drink hot beer if I had to.
Yeah.
I acquired a taste for that if there wasn't any, if I didn't have any Cokes or anything. But we refueled Hueys, gunships, and also Chinook helicopters. I know one occasion when we were refueling, this was at base camp. This was at Don Batin, and I was on duty on the flight line refueling aircraft, and this chopper landed. So I wasn't allowed to refuel a chopper unless it shut down the blades. Well, the crew chief, he jumped out of the ship, and I said, I can't refuel you till you tie your blade down. He said, Westmoreland's on this ship. So I refueled him with the blade going, and he was out of there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But we didn't we didn't tie his blade down. I would go to Cameron Bay to get fuel and take my 1,200 gallon tanker. And so I had my own time limit that I would go. Sometimes I would take a 3/4 ton or a Jeep over and maybe pick up some parts for the motor pool. But most of the time I would take my truck, and that was my only form of transportation, so I was always ready to go get fuel. So I went and got my fuel that morning, and so we would walk up and down the South China Sea, and we would call it dibs if we'd see something. What it was Japanese fishing balls that were on fishing nets, and we would see those. Most of the time they were broken, but sometimes you'll see a good one. And so I thought I parked off the beach good. I just drove up and parked, and we were walking up and down the beach. And I don't know how long I was gone up the beach, probably an hour or so. But when I came back, I noticed the tide was washing up under my front wheels of my truck. I thought, this is not going to be good. If I lose this deuce and a half with a 1,200 gallon tanker full of jet fuel. So fortunately, it backed up. I didn't do that again. The next time I made sure that I parked a greater distance than I did. But occasionally we'd find some those balls. I think maybe I had a couple, maybe one or two in a lazo, and I would buy a gun or a pistol occasionally. And so he worked at the bar. I didn't work there, but we had a little safe there that we could keep our items in. So, but I don't know what he did with it because I left them.
Mhm.
And I left before he did, and he was supposed to send them to me, but he didn't send them.
Mhm.
I was on a helicopter. They flew me to the train. I was going to ride some officers around. We'd been out in the field, so the first sergeant he called me and said, "You want to go do a little R&R up in the train?" And I said, "Shoot, yeah." So they flew me up there to what I would do is I had a 3/4 ton, and I would I would pick up the officers in the at at their hotel, and they weren't staying there at the flight line.
Mhm.
In other words, I was staying in a barrack or a tent beside the flight line, but they were staying in a hotel, and so I would pick them up at a certain time and shuttle them back and forth to the flight line.
Mhm.
Warrant officers and uh, first lieutenants and captains that were pilots. Uh, I know that may have been the trip that I was there because I went 2 or 3 times uh, to drive the officers around. Uh, but that may have been the time. They let me through for about a week. I've been up there going through. You had to go through the gate where the AP was, and I I was going in and out and in and out, and I noticed I don't know if it was morning or afternoon, but they stopped me and wanted to see my military license for Vietnam. I said, I ain't got no military license. And they said, well, you have to have some. Because I'd been out in the field, I didn't realize I was supposed to have a set of license. So they upset me to the. In other words, it took 2 Jeep loads of APs to get me to this supposed little jailhouse that they had.
Mhm.
Um, I wasn't a happy camper, and and I was probably older than anybody there,
Mhm.
and I was meaner than anybody there. But they did. Uh, they had enough of them that they got me, and I can remember they took me in this little building, and I saw a jail. I saw the bars. The door was open. They walked me back there, and I was raising so much hell. I said, "You need to let me get on the field phone." So I got on the phone. I called over across on the other side of the flight line to my office, and I told them they needed to get somebody over there that they had their heads up their ass.
Mhm.
And so they uh, there was a captain or a colonel that came over here, and so as soon as I saw him walking through the door, I kind of stepped up, and he said, "Watkins, just I'll handle it." And
Mhm.
so I remember I went out to the Jeep that he was driving, and uh, I noticed that either that night, that afternoon, or the next day, there was a chopper that came to the train that had me a set of driver's license.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
And one time I was in the train, I flew in. Somehow or another, I had my foot on my rifle, and as soon as he took off, he banked to the left or to the left. I can
Mm-hmm.
remember it was to the left. And I didn't have my foot on my rifle. I didn't have my foot around my sling.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember that thing sliding. You talking about a heart attack. I knew if it went, I was going in after it.
Uh-huh.
But I got off of that plane, and they had another mission. That plane had 3 minutes of flying time on it, and it went down in the South China Sea after it let me out with mechanical problems.
Wow.
And so I remember that next day they went and took a Chinook or a flying crane, I'm not sure which, but they when they brought it up, and that thing was already eat up where it had only been in there just a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see where the salt water had already started because of those walls being so thin.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a little crazy right there.
Yeah. We were at North Tuiwa or South Tuiwa, and we lost 9 ships in one day, 9 helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not a good day.
Mm-hmm.
That was in our. That wasn't out of my company. That was our battalion. I think lost 9 ships that day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say we lost like 3.
Mm-hmm.
But time passed a lot faster being out in the field. So, and we supported the 101st. In other words, when we would go out and have an assault, the 101st is who we supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in other words, we slept beside of them, not with them,
mm-hmm.
beside of them. And I know I can still see when they would they'd do it. They'd take those choppers up and take smoke bombs and write 101st before they had a. But those boys were tough.
Mm-hmm.
They were tough.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask in the beginning. What unit did you serve in?
I was with the 17th Group, 117th Assault Helicopter Company.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, our base camp was was Don Patin.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably 20 miles from Cameron Bay. The first sergeant, I don't know. The White Horse Division of Tigers of Koreans, the White Horse Division and the Tiger Division, they were always our perimeter guard. And so, especially at base camp, they would, like I say, we had our guards around the flight line. The Army did. And then, but the White Horse and the Tiger Division, they were on our outer perimeter.
Mhm.
And sometimes they would be running short of supplies. I know I would. I took a couple loads of water. I would pull it with a 3/4 ton. Those things didn't have power steering, but and what you had to do is you had to go through a rubber plantation to get. A couple times I did to get to where their company was, and they the rubber plantations is where they had snipers at. So when and I would take Lozo with me.
Mhm.
He'd ride shotgun. But when we uh, now a couple times I had a Jeep Escort. I think I just had one. I didn't have two. Didn't have one, but I know I took a trailer of potable water to them. Oh, and they were so happy. The Koreans were so happy, and so they had the Korean beer in these glass bottles in these wooden crates, and so they had plenty of beer. They just didn't have any water,
Mhm.
and so they were so happy, or uh, that 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 we had brought them the water, and oh, they wanted us to sit down and drink beer with them. And they would walk us through this minefield to where we had to drink the beer. So they would show us where we would walk behind them.
Mhm.
Wasn't happy about that. Uh, they had big old kick bags uh, that, I mean, just all around their base there where they were practicing their karate or
Mhm.
whatever type of fighting they did. But they would load us down with beer. They always sent first sergeant back beer. Well, of course, they gave me beer while I was there, and I act like I would drink it, but I just give it to Lazo because he could knock it
Mhm.
out. So, I may take a sip or two, but then I'd swap bottles with him. And but uh, but when we came back, we didn't have water tanker on the truck, and we boogied through those rubber plantations.
Mhm.
I drove a load of maps one time. They flew me up to the train, and when I got there, they had a 3/4 ton of maps. I don't know why they didn't go fly them in. I don't know if the weather. I can't remember about the weather, but anyway, they had to get those maps back to battalion headquarters, and I remember but I had two escorts that day. I had a Jeep ahead of me and a Jeep behind me, and with uh, and I think I was by myself that day.
Mhm.
I don't know why I didn't have somebody riding shotgun with me. But, like I say, I had that escort in front of me, behind me. I can't remember. It's been so
Oh
long.
no, it's fine.
Oh, they at first night in country, play cool. We landed there on a metal flight line. Golly, as we was landed, we was in a C-130, and uh, so we landed. Seemed like it was getting close to the afternoon. Uh, when we got there, uh, they were calling for guard duty, and I sworn if my name wasn't second or third, it was right around. It was, and so here I was, hadn't been in country over 2 or 3 hours, and I had guard duty. And I didn't know. I was a newbie.
Mm-hmm.
But I got out there, and there was something I didn't have. When, in other words, they had it wasn't a tower. It was like sandbags. But I don't know if I was short ammunition. There was something I didn't have, and I know I got on that field radio, and I requested so they did bring me, and I can't remember what it was, but they did. But I know that night, or the next night, it was rainy and cold, and when you leave the States, they take your field jacket. So I had short sleeve shirts, and I was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And my daddy told me that when you're in the Army, because he'd always taught us not to steal, but he said if you have to, when you're in the Army or the Navy, it's Army or Navy. If you need it, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I stole me a poncho and a field jacket, and because whoever left it there, I don't know. I was trying to get warm, and I was trying to get dry.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I did. I did borrow until I got to company headquarters. That old water over there was so dirty and nasty, and I would wash my own clothes, but you could hire Vietnamese to wash your clothes, and they smelled terrible. And so I found out after a while that if you had a hole in your clothes, that you could just take them to the supply room and get new ones. So when my clothes started smelling bad, I'd take 2 rocks, I'd knock a hole in them, I'd take them and get me some clean ones. I had friends that were cooks, that they'd sleep in the same tent with me, but I ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Hershey bars. But at night, the officers, they were subject to have some fried chicken. And so if I had guard duty, I'd make sure I tried to make sure it was near the mess tent.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some good fried chicken at
night. Oh, yeah.
And they would have devil ham and I love devil ham. But they would have devil ham and I would also acquire some of those that maybe I wasn't supposed to have.
Yeah.
But I got it from my friends that were cooks. North Tuiwa was where, I don't know, we always had a big tent that we slept in. A community tent that we'd set up when we had but this time, I don't know, it was like a pup tent. And I was in it, and I remember I crawled out of that thing that morning and was brushing my teeth. And this snake comes out of my tent right beside of me. I'm not a snake person. I was not a happy camper. And I don't remember killing that snake. I think I just let him go. But crazy. I liked when they did when we were down at Fort Bragg. I enjoyed going on those hikes.
Mm-hmm.
I know we would find because Joyce would come down on the weekends to see me. I'd get a pass. And, I know I hit I don't know why, but I found a couple of big sets of deer antlers, and I hit them. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't really think I ever went back and found them. I don't think I remember where I hit them at. I couldn't find it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last question on here. Um, what was how were things when you came back from Vietnam? Like, did anything like feel like, I don't know how to word it. Like, was everything just kind of returned back to normal, or how was how was going back
Yeah,
after?
I just had like I just had maybe a couple of weeks left, and my mother passed away when I was in Vietnam, and I know because they we were out. I don't know what they called. I don't know. It was some kind of offense. The Ted. It wasn't a Ted offense, but so I remember I was out in a foxhole, but we were at base camp, and cause for the last couple of nights they had been uh, just trying to come in or aggravate us and get. They had to come through the Tiger Division before they got to the flight line anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I remember we were on the other side of the flight line, but between and oh so and they came out there, and so I and they don't tell you then what's the matter. They just said I had to go to Red Cross. They had a little building, and it was where the Red Cross was at. So I went there, and they told me. So then the next day I flew out, or that night, or flew out to out of Cameron Bay, and I just hitched. I had a ticket. I mean, not a ticket, but well, I guess I did. I had a ticket to uh, for a ride the next day, but uh, anyway, I, I caught me a ride at Cameron Bay on a C-141
Mm-hmm.
to it went through Alaska and landed in Charleston, and so then I took a bus from Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
So so I still had a couple weeks, and so they didn't send me back,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody treated me nice. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember because I still had probably I probably still had like 3 months in the army, 3 or 4 months. So I was stationed back at Fort Lee where I was before,
Mm-hmm.
but I lived off post because we were working before we went in the army. So Joyce and I had a little money, so we could afford to live off post.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fortunate. We lived in Hopewell, Virginia. It was I don't know, probably 10, 12 miles from Fort Lee. But Joyce, she liked the Army because I had qualified to go to OCS. They were aggravating me about going to OCS.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I had a good enough score that I could win. and Joyce, she liked it,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't. You know, my daddy was sick, and grandma was sick, and Drew was sick, and mother died, and I just felt like I needed to be at
Oh.
home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I didn't like the army. I tried to uh, I tried to do my best while
Mm-hmm.
I was there, but I wasn't an RA. I wasn't 3 years on the league.
Mm-hmm.
I was 25 and a half, so I was I was comfortable with what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
but it was good that we had the money to live off post. So gosh, we liked it. We went to the movie, and we had my next door neighbor was a captain,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, well, I told you before when Martin Luther King got killed,
Mm-hmm.
we were living up there, and so they were rioting, and so uh, they sent us to up to Washington, uh, and so like I say, I lived off post, so we were at. They called us in, didn't know, and or either I was at the base, but anyway, I couldn't go home to get my gear. I had all my clothes and my gear at the house, and so I called my buddy Steve, that was a captain, and he went to my house and got all my gear. So I
Mm-hmm.
was in formation. I can still remember being in formation, and so he drove a little Camaro, little red, little red. So he had it because he worked in an office, so he had his dress uniform on. So I'm out there in formation. So this captain pulls up. He opens the trunk of his car. He gets all this gear out of the back up. Then he walks over where we were in formation at. He walks around behind me and puts it right behind me. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Now about uh, I don't know. I was at this must have been before I went overseas. I was at Fort Lee, and I was had office duty or something. I don't know what it was, but I was there, and they called me and wanted me to take. Wanted me to escort somebody somewhere, and so uh, so I can't remember if we walked. It seemed like we walked. I don't know, but the general. I know we went to some general's office, and I remember I was sitting out there, and this fellow went inside. I can't remember what his rank was, and I remember the general came out, and he said, Watkins said, "What would you do if this man ran from you?" I said, "I'll go get him, bring him back." He said, "Hell no, you won't. This man ain't under arrest." I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Just let him go in my custody." and so and so I think by the time I got back to headquarters, they'd already received a call.
Mm-hmm.
They said he wasn't under arrest. Well, they told me to make sure he got there. He was
Mm-hmm.
under arrest for me. Oh, no. I called Joyce a couple times overseas, but you couldn't hear them. You'd say what you said, and then you had to say over,
Mm-hmm.
and then I guess I don't. I don't know if I could hear them or not. I can't. I can't remember. But
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Mother. Joyce was working, So, but I talked to mother and daddy, I think, or mother and grandmother, because I don't think maybe Drew. There was a lot of. Oh, we were at North Tuiwa or South Tuiwa. We had already been there a couple of days, and we had our jeeps and tankers and with army on it,
Mhm.
and there was a film crew there, and they were trying to make a news report, and they made us move all of our vehicles back, and then the Marines they landed. They were making a newsreel.
Uh-huh.
Uh, we've been there 2 or 3 days.
Mhm.
That was near that same location uh, where I had that Dusenheim, that tanker parked too close to the beach.
Mhm.
If they'd have some, I know one night we had 9 aircraft. I don't know why it was 9 Chinooks. I don't think it was been 9 Chinooks, but they were. I don't know. They had thought that they were going to hit us pretty bad that night, and
Mhm.
all these aircraft were refueled. And so I knew, because I remember I had my shorts on, and so I had to go defuel those 9 aircraft that night. But it seemed like I don't know why they were. I'm thinking they were all Chinooks, but they couldn't have. It must have just been 2 or 3 Chinooks, and the rest of them were Hueys. I know that. I don't know if that was the night that we had a little pump that you hand crank up,
Mhm.
and it was dark, and somehow or another, when I was cranking it up, the handle got. I was out there by myself, but the handle stayed in that thing, and I was afraid it was going to hit me. And I
Mhm.
know I had to make a big circle to get around so I could cut it off. I didn't want to go.
Uh-huh.
I was afraid to go in front of it, but I don't. Seemed like I made like a wide circle and uh, turned turned it off. We used to. It was so nasty, and I was bad about spitting. And I know we'd go into town. Maybe we'd go into town to get some ice or something, not to put in our drinks, just to keep some drinks cool
Mhm.
if we were going to convoy. And I remember a couple times it would be under a Vietnamese bed, and it'd have sawdust on it. It'd be
Mhm.
wrapped up in sawdust. So, uh, but we'd buy it would be a block of ice, and we'd buy us a little hunk of it to put in our cooler
Mhm.
to keep our drinks. Which we made sure the next time we had Coca-Colas after that first episode uh, where we only had 2 cases of root beer. The Pathfinders they used to when we would go in, they would torch. In other words, uh, most of these roads were like old dirt roads, I guess. I
Mhm.
can't remember, but I know they would torch both sides of it while we were going through with those little uh, guns. And a lot of times I wasn't real happy about driving that tanker full of jet fuel
Mm-hmm.
through there, but it was just part of it. Those Pathfinders, some of them had done a couple, some of them done 3 tours of duty,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to be tough to do what they did. But you see a bunch of them in the back of a 3/4 ton with the curtain drawn. You know they're smoking something. And it wasn't fun sleeping in other words, sometimes we would just have a community tent, a big tent,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't put a safety on their guns. They wear those purple glasses. But they, they were good. Cause they were dynamite experts, chainsaws, and so like I say, they were the first ones in, so they were tough. I didn't like sleeping with them, but they got my attention when I was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was older than my company commander in boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. They want you to salute. I mean, come and get your pay. And you salute and your name right. And I did it one time, and then because I sent my check to Joyce, I didn't need any money, and so I reported one time and saluted for my check when I was in the army, in the service. I didn't do anything. They had to hunt me down and give me mine. That was a little game I played.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me to the dentist. I went to the dentist when I was in Fort Bragg the first day or 2 or 3. Golly. My teeth, I had braces when I was an old man, but my teeth, they kind of, but I remember that examination, I thought, I'm not going back. So, so then they sent me to AIT. That's where you're supposed to do your dental work. I remember one morning they had me to fall out, and I had a dental appointment. I said, okay. And I had a new truck. I just bought a new 1966 truck because I blew my Chevrolet up, my 57 Chevrolet up, coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And something was the matter with it, so we took the truck back. And they had me to fall out that morning and go to the dentist. Well, I fell out and I went home to Joyce. We're down at Hopewell.
Mm-hmm.
So about 2 days later, at early morning formation, they had us, they called my name that I had a dental appointment again. So I fell out. I went home to Hopewell. So then, it was a day later. It might have been that next day. They called me out, and then they sent somebody with me to escort me to the dentist office, and it was this young kid, and I still remember sitting in the dentist office. It was getting close to lunchtime. They hadn't took me back yet, and I said, "You don't need to stay here." I said, I'm good. And he said, "You really?" I said, "Yeah, just go ahead and go get something to eat." I said, "I'm good." He said, "Okay." So he left. He went out the front door. I went out the back door and got my truck, and I went home for and so then about a week later, they sent me to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So if my teeth went bad, it was my fault.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I would go to, I'd fall out for an eye exam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was, you got, I'd already been to Vietnam, so, I mean, it's like I took a law course when I got, when I had that 3 months, that last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never had KP. I should have got them. I never had KP when I was in boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because I was a squad leader, or I was somehow or other I got around it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember one time we were somewhere out in the field, and we had Vietnamese that were supposedly washing our dishes and things, and I think some people got sick, so they called us in, and I think they called me down there for KP. I might have done 2 hours. I can't remember. I wasn't there long,
Mm-hmm.
'cause, and so I was out of there. But when I came home, they were wanting to give me a hard. I had a hard stripe earned overseas, but when I got stateside, I mean, I could have used the money. But when I got stateside, if I had a hard stripe, then I would have had duty every night at the office or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I just denied it, and I just kept my Spec 4 rank.
Mm-hmm.
That way I could stay at home. And
Uh-huh.
I could go take law school. And I worked for a contractor that did tobacco. He built tobacco barns.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and hung sheetrock up. That was when I could carry a 5/8, uh, 8 foot by 12 foot piece of 5/8 sheetrock. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But no, oh, we I went 9 days one time without getting in a cot. I'm sure the 101st and I'm sure those boys they didn't ever get to lay down. But
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that I got to sleep on a cot most of the time. But I know so it was like I don't know why it was 9 days, but it was 9 days we were convoying, and I didn't. I don't remember crawling in a sleeping bag or on a cot for 9 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now I take a shower. I uh, uh, since we had access to those, we had a truck and we always had water, and they would get me to pull the water trailer around. Uh, I didn't do it, but there was. I know I was. They the officers had their shower, and then we had our shower, and the water was cold anyway. But I can remember. Don't know who it was, but want to say I hauled the ice, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't. Maybe I didn't. But anyway, they put ice in the officer's shower. You could hear them that night because it was right off the flight line.
Mm-hmm.
When that when they got in the shower, you could hear them that night.
Yeah.
They didn't have a good warm shower. Play cool. I don't like it. I didn't sleep a wink when I was there. I don't like that place. As much as I drove the truck, I did good though. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they never, I don't remember hitting anything. I know I was sleeping as close as from here to where you come in at, to I think they had like, must have had like 10,000 collapsible tanks. And they hit that thing with a mortar round. That gets your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a bit over half a mile from uh, from where I was sleeping at the night, and it just when you like I say when you went by there that next day there was nothing there. I mean
Mm-hmm.
those those gunners and those crew chiefs on those helicopters there. I mean they're dedicated to if they don't those boys they do not sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean I flew you know I would fly when they would send me something, but as far as being a gunner or a crew chief, I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they had they had a hard job. It was, it was just because it was hot. It was either hot and raining,
Mm-hmm.
and they they maintained those engines on those things were spotless. I know they shake so much that the bolts when the bolts they try to have a hole in them so they can wire them
Mm-hmm.
once they to to keep them shut. Lord, it's been so long I can't remember much.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's perfectly fine. Um, if you if you're done, this is fine right here. If you want to stop.
Okay, I didn't mean to tell you so many
Oh.
war stories.
Oh no, no, that was fine. Thank you. All right. And